What would you do if, minutes before your wedding, someone told you not to marry your own bride? Not a stranger, not an ex, her son. I remember standing in a small side room just off the main hall, already dressed, tie tight, palms sweating around a ring that suddenly felt heavier than it should. Outside, guests were seated. Music was cued. Everyone thought they knew how the next few minutes were supposed to go. I did too. Then Liam walked in. Nonak, no hesitation. Just anger barely contained. He looked me straight in the eye and said the one sentence that still echoes in my head. I can't let you marry her. First I laughed. A nervous reflex. I assumed this was wedding stress, a last-minute panic that would blow over. Blended families are complicated. I knew that going in. But here's the thing no one tells you. Weddings don't create conflict. They expose it. Because when my wife-to-be, Sarah, stepped into that room, I expected her to shut it down immediately, to defend us, to defend me. Instead, she hesitated. And that hesitation told me everything was about to change. Why did he feel so entitled to decide my future? Liam stood there with his arms crossed, jaw tight, like he was guarding a door only he had the right to lock. He wasn't shaking. He wasn't emotional. That's what scared me. This wasn't a kid acting out. This was someone who believed he had authority. He told me I didn't understand his mother, that I was rushing her, that I was taking something from him. Each sentence stacked on the next, building a case I never agreed to be part of. He talked about loyalty, about family, about how things were before I came along. I tried to keep it light at first, joked that weddings make everyone dramatic, asked him to take a breath. But he didn't laugh. He stepped closer instead. Then he said it again. Slower this time, like he wanted it to sink in. You can't marry her. I looked past him, half expecting Sarah to interrupt, to laugh this off, to tell her son he'd crossed a line. Instead, she stood frozen near the doorframe, eyes bouncing between us like a referee who didn't want to blow the whistle. That's when it hit me. This wasn't new. This conversation had happened before, just not with me in the room. I asked Liam a simple question. Who told you this was your decision? He didn't answer. He didn't need to, because Sarah finally spoke. And she didn't say my name. She said his. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't standing between a mother and her son. I was standing outside the circle entirely. Have you ever waited for someone to defend you and felt the air drain when they didn't? Sarah stepped fully into the room then, closing the door behind her like she was sealing us into something private and fragile. She didn't look at me right away. She looked at Liam, softened her voice, asked him to calm down, told him she understood why he was upset. Understood. That word landed harder than anything he'd said. I finally asked her if she agreed with him, if she really thought we shouldn't get married. The music outside started faintly through the walls, cheerful and completely out of place. She rubbed her temples like this was all too much for her to manage at once. She said this wasn't the time, that emotions were high, that maybe we should pause. Just for a few minutes. Then she looked at me and said it, quietly, carefully. Maybe you should step aside for now. Step aside. From my own wedding. I felt my face go hot. Not from anger. From embarrassment. From the sudden awareness that every person in that hall believed I was about to walk down an aisle that I was now being asked to vacate. I asked her if she heard herself, if she understood what she was asking me to do. She said she just didn't want to upset her son. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about timing, or stress, or the wedding. This was about order, about who came first. And as Liam let out a slow breath of relief behind her, I realized something terrifying. If I agreed to this, I would never matter more than him. Not today. Not ever. And that's when I stopped arguing. What happens when the room goes quiet and you finally hear your own thoughts? I stopped talking. Completely. No more explaining. No more trying to sound reasonable. The silence made Sarah nervous. I could see it in the way she shifted her weight, the way her eyes searched my face for anger or tears or something she could respond to. I gave her nothing. I looked down at the ring in my hand. Gold. Simple. Heavy. I carried it around for weeks, terrified of losing it. Turns out that wasn't the risk I should have been worried about. Outside, the music swelled. The cue I was supposed to follow. Guests were probably smiling, leaning forward, ready to watch a moment they'd already taken time off work to attend. Funny how a room full of people can feel so far away when everything collapses in a space no bigger than a closet. I thought about the future Sarah was asking me to accept. Holidays negotiated. Arguments decided before they started. A marriage where I'd always be the one asked to step aside for the sake of peace. I asked myself a question I'd never considered before. What would it cost me to go through with this? The answer came fast. Too fast. I straightened my jacket, took a breath, and walked toward the ceremony anyway. Not to plead, not to explain, just to do one thing I never imagined doing on my wedding day. Because I still had the ring. And I finally knew who I wasn't giving it to. Have you ever felt every eye in a room lock onto you at once? That's what hit me the second I stepped into the hall. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned. Smiles faltered. I wasn't walking with the confidence of a groom about to say, "I do." I was walking like someone carrying news no one wanted to hear. Sarah stood at the front, confusion already creeping across her face. Liam was beside her, arms folded again. That same certainty etched into his expression. He thought he'd won. That much was obvious. The officiant glanced at me, unsure whether to start or stall. I didn't rush. I didn't speak right away. I let the silence stretch, just long enough for discomfort to settle in. Then I held up the ring. A soft gasp rippled through the room. People leaned forward, expecting vows, apologies, some dramatic reconciliation. That's what weddings train us to expect. A last-minute save. Instead, I turned slightly, not toward Sarah, toward my sister, Anna, sitting in the front row. Her eyes widened as I reached her, confusion melting into understanding. I placed the ring gently in her hand and asked her to hold onto it for me. For now. The room erupted in whispers. Sarah took a step forward, her face draining of color. Liam's confidence cracked, just for a moment. I looked at them both and said calmly that I couldn't marry into a family where I was expected to disappear whenever things got uncomfortable. Then I turned and walked back down the aisle alone. Behind me, the wedding didn't just stop. Collapsed. What did that moment cost me? That's the question people always ask. And the truth is, it cost me less than staying would have. The wedding was canceled within minutes. Guests left in awkward clusters, whispering theories, avoiding eye contact. By the end of the day, the hall was empty. The decorations were taken down. And the future I thought I was walking into was gone. Sarah tried to talk to me later. She said I'd embarrassed her, that I should have handled it privately. But here's the part that still matters most to me. She never said I was wrong. She never said her son crossed a line. Not once. That silence answered everything. I thought back to the opening question. What would you do if someone told you not to marry your own bride? I learned the answer isn't about pride or revenge. It's about clarity. About realizing that love without loyalty is just convenience dressed up as commitment. Weddings don't just unite people. They expose power dynamics that already exist. So if you ever find yourself being asked to step aside on a day meant to include you, take it seriously. That request isn't temporary. And if this story made you pause, ask yourself one thing. Would you have stayed?